Welcome back to the Leeds Lens. It's the morning after a famous win for Leeds United, obviously, at Wolves yesterday in just a massive game for Leeds United. It was a 6-pointer. We got it over the line, but we're not here to talk about that as much today. We might get onto it later in the show, but we're going to talk a bit about Bogle and the injury he sustained, which is a bit of a negative. We're also going to get into a few Daniel Farke quotes, because again, he's been talking after the game. And some of the quotes, I don't know, it's just like frustrating me. We're on such a positive, and then I read some of them and I'm just like, why? Maybe it's true, but do they need to be said? So we'll get on about that. And then we're also going to talk a bit about Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. Obviously, we had a fantastic game yesterday. His best game in a Leeds shirt, without a doubt. He was talking after the game, and there's some really good quotes in there. Some about how we can improve, some about sort of what went well in the game for him, what went wrong. It was a nice little conversation from Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So we're going to talk a bit about that too. But let's start with Jaden Bogle, of course. The update regarding Jaden Bogle is that his foot is really, really swollen. This is from all accounts. His foot's really, really swollen. And truthfully, Daniel Farke was talking after the game and said basically because it's so swollen at the moment, it can't be assessed. Now, a swollen foot, hopefully, if it's just that and they're just bruising, obviously, he could be back, obviously, probably potentially for the Spurs game. I don't think we're going to see him for the Bournemouth game now, because I mean, I've really bruised my foot before, because in a similar way. And you are out for a while, like it is bad, especially when you kick the ball, like it's his right foot, and it would do the same with his left foot. So that is going to be an issue for Leeds United. But basically, we're going to hear from that in later days when the swelling goes down, because we can't make a full analysis, or Leeds United can't make a full analysis on Jaden Bogle yet with the situation that he is in and how swollen it is. So that's really the update on Bogle. We're probably going to hear in the next few days about the update there. But my feeling is probably not an amazing update for Leeds United, if we're being totally honest. Anyway, let's get on to talk a bit about Daniel Farke. Luke T says, buzzing, liked Farke's comments after the game as well, hoping Bogle isn't too serious. You liked his quotes. Well, this is interesting, Luke, because I want to talk about one of the quotes that potentially I didn't like as much, but I'm interested that you did like it. I liked some of the stuff he said, but there's one quote in particular that I've picked out that I was watching on Match of the Day last night before I went to bed, of course, because why not? Obviously, I was going to watch Match of the Day yesterday with obviously the Leeds United result. I haven't actually watched Match of the Day all season yet. But yesterday, I mean, come on, that was obviously going to happen. So yeah, I'm interested to know which quote you liked. But yeah, we'll talk a bit about Daniel Farke now, because the quote I want to pick up on is he said, he basically suggested, obviously the game happened, everyone's really happy, we're all happy, the whole world's happy, well, in the Leeds United sphere at least, and he came out and said, wins like this don't come around very often for newly promoted sides. So basically, enjoy it while you can, because these don't happen very often, which is fine. But I am getting, if I'm being honest with you all, a bit sick of these quotes now. I'm coming out the game, I'm buzzing with the game, I'm watching Match of the Day, buzzing still. I've woke up being buzzing still, and then I watch it on Match of the Day, and I'm watching him talk, and he's going, oh, well, this won't happen very often, and dampen your expectations. Don't expect anything that good. And I'm just like, why? Like, maybe it's true. And I said on my stream afterwards, it's true. We are going to struggle in games. I did say that. I said, we're not going to win many more games this year, so enjoy it while you can. It's the reason I called the video, let's have a party, or whatever I called it, something on a sort of party setting. But I still think, like, the manager of Leeds United to come out and basically say, oh, this ain't going to happen too often. It didn't happen from the promoted side, so, enjoy it while you can. Like, just let us believe. Let us believe, Daniel, that it's all fantastic. That's what being a fan is all about. Being a fan is about enjoying the ride, enjoying the experiences, and hoping. We might have found people in our fan base who think we can get into Europe, think we can get into the top 10. Let them believe. You don't have to dampen expectations. And it annoys me because I know why he's doing it. He's doing it so he can go, oh yeah, but we're not actually that good. And it's like, you just don't need to say it. Like when he can go, oh, well, we're not really that good, and we're doing a really good job and all that, and it's almost covering his own back. But as I said, it damages the sort of the fun of it all. Like, we want to believe as Leeds fans, and yes, I understand, and I said it afterwards that there might sort of this is probably going to be a hard season for us, and we're not going to win loads of away games. But from the manager, it just doesn't need to be said. Personally, I just don't think it needs to be said. I like what he said about the Goodmanson chance early on the Leeds YouTube channel. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. And with DCL, he mentioned about the Goodmanson chance. But yeah, I don't know. With that particular quote, people, I am interested to know what you think of it. I think for me, as I said, I mentioned this in reaction to a press conference when he sort of brought up the similar stuff in the press conference, talking about the fact that, as I said, we're not that good. And he mentioned a quote last week about Harrison and James and Aronson have all basically failed before, so they've got points to prove and stuff. But I just like, he's just doing it to protect himself. That's what I feel like. He's doing it to sort of bit of go, look how well I'm doing, because this team's rubbish, really, but I'm doing really well. And as I said, the transfer windows happen now. I think that's fully acceptable when the transfer window's going on and you're trying to push the board to get your new signings. I completely understand that. I know why he said we'd struggle in the summer if we don't buy new attackers. The season's done now, and he said in his press conference when the season was over that now we need to just work with what we have. And then since that point of saying that quote, all he's done is gone, oh, this is we're not going to win very often. We're a newly promoted side. Drop it. I don't care. Everybody knows we're a newly promoted side. Everybody knows that we're not going to win loads of games. I don't need my manager to tell me that. I want my manager to be optimistic and let me believe. That is what managers do. And the best example I can give you of this is last season, Maresca was in a title race with Chelsea. They were in a title race, but by about December, they were top of the league, I think, drawing top of the league with Liverpool at that point. And Maresca came out and went, yeah, well, don't really think we're going to get in the top. We're not really. They asked him if he's in the title race, and he basically said, we're not in a title race. And we're just trying to get in the top four. And the ethos and the sort of thing that put into the team. And they went on since he said that, by the way, they went on an absolutely abysmal run and lost loads and loads of games. And ended up obviously just about walking the way into the Champions League right at the end of the season. But it damaged them for the next few games. And because he was sort of like said, oh yeah, we're doing well, but we're not going to do that. And it's like, when we're playing well and we're doing well at the moment, just don't say anything. Don't mention it. We can maybe mention it when we're not doing as well and say, look, we're struggling, we're a newly promoted team and there is context behind it, fine. When we're winning games, shut up. Just shut up. Please, please. And as I said, this is not a Daniel Farke out thing. This is not a sort of like, I hate the manager. None of that is true. In fact, if you just watched my video yesterday in the match reaction, when PSF was talking, PSF dropped a comment saying that sort of like it wasn't Daniel Farke the reason we won that game, something like that. I don't want to re-quote him, but I basically went back on it and said, look, that is ridiculous. Like Farke's managed really well yesterday, and he did. He managed fantastically well. The way we managed the game, it is not a Daniel Farke thing. It's just these particular quotes that he keeps coming up about dampening expectations or a newly promoted side, and these players are not good enough. It just feels like self-preservation. I just don't like it, and I think that you should allow the Leeds fans to believe that we can finish in the top six if we want to. Like if we win the next 3 games, we're not gonna do. I don't obviously, but if say we were to beat Bournemouth, Spurs, and Burnley say that happened, let the fans believe. Why can't we? Why just let us believe? That's all I want to say about it, and I don't want to go any further. But I don't want him in his press conference on next Thursday to be going, oh well. We're not that good. Like, I just don't want that. I just don't want it. I think he's a massive protector in managing expectations. He did it in the Championship when bigging up certain sides. Yeah, no, I know that, Luke. Do you know what I mean though? Like, it just feels like why do we need to say that? Why do we need to say that? Got every chance of staying up. I'd say same goes for Burnley and Sunderland, all being competitive and taking each game as it comes. More than enough reason to be positive. Exactly. And now this is not a negative stream. This is not a negative stream at all. It's been bugging me for week on week now. And I thought after the game at the weekend, after the game yesterday, we've played really well. We've got a really good result. The attackers have done really well. We've scored 3 goals. It doesn't need to be said. So that's why I've titled the video "Strange Farke Quotes." It's just strange. It's odd, and I know, and I just don't like it. To be honest, I just don't like it. Anyway, we've talked enough about that. Yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice to hear. But I guess Farke is just trying to lower expectations to protect the players. Can see both sides. To be fair, yeah, I know that. It's not. He's right. The reason Daniel Farke with these quotes is correct. Leeds United are not going to win loads of away games. That is all true. And we are a newly promoted side, and newly promoted sides traditionally don't win lots of away games. We know all this, but it just doesn't need to be said. Like, some things are facts and true, but they don't need to be said. Like, for example, the Wolves manager. There might be a stat now that Wolves have, with any team that's lost the first 5 games, are all getting relegated. Wolves manager's not going to come out next week and go, oh, well, all the teams that lose the first 5 games all go down, so we're going to get relegated. That's what's going to happen. No, of course he's not going to say that. He's going to come out and go, yeah, well, we think we can change it because this and this. Like, that's what I mean. Like, some stats don't need to be said and put in the public domain, and I think that's what it is with this. He'll want to win every game, no doubt. Won't affect that. No, I agree, Mark. It won't affect that. But I don't know. It's just frustrating. I'm not his biggest fan. All I care about is points on the board. And 7 from 5 is lovely. Completely agree. On a side note, we've already equalled Southampton's win from last season. Yeah, we have. And I've got a quote about that, by the way, which we'll say now, Luke. I'm glad you brought it up. Leeds United, so far, this is why we need to be positive, by the way. This is the whole thing. Leeds United now, after 5 games, have picked up as many points as Southampton, Leicester, and Ipswich did in their first 5. Ipswich got 3 points in the first 5. Leicester got 3 points in the first 5, and Southampton got 1. Leeds United have got, as I said, as many points as all 3 of them combined last season by this point. So we're doing well. There's nothing. This whole thing about Farke is not about the performance on the pitch. It's nothing about that. It's just these potential quotes that he's saying are just frustrating me because we're doing really well, and that is, if you want some optimism, that is optimistic, because if you had all their points together throughout the season, they'd stay up by miles. So I know people go, yeah, but they're all rubbish. Yeah, but if you add them all together, we'd be flying. So yeah, as many points. We've had an exceptional start. We really have. We've had an exceptional start. Anyway, let's get on to DCL, because we've had enough of talking about Daniel Farke. That's probably gone on too long, as it was in truth. So DCL, after the game, post-match, talked about sort of nice to get his first goal, which obviously fantastic. We said on the post-match yesterday as well, brilliant that Calvert-Lewin got his first goal. He's going to be a massively important player for us. And when I watched him yesterday, on a side note to what I'm going to say, like, if we can keep him fit, he will be really good for us in the Premier League. I'm convinced of it. The guy's got quality. He's got that extra X factor that I don't think we've got in the side. We have to keep Dominic Calvert-Lewin fit. Like the goal, I know like people talk about sort of, oh, it's just a header, or I don't know what they'll say about it. But that is a moment of brilliance. Like that is the equivalent of doing a shot from the edge of the box out of nothing and scoring a goal. At that point in the game, Leeds United were pushing the game, pressing the game, and we were a dominant game, but we hadn't really created anything in terms of actual goal-scoring opportunities. And then we just put a looping ball in from Bogle on the right, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin makes something of it and scores. He's the only one on the team that will be able to do that. And that is why we've got to keep him fit. And then we can talk about what he did after the game as well, in terms of the way he won fouls, and he basically won everything, didn't he, yesterday, Dominic Calvert-Lewin? So he's massively important. But what I liked actually in the quotes after is he talked about the fact that that's his game. Like he said, and the reason I like this quote, he said, because they talked about it's nice to score a header and stuff, and he said, yeah, that's his game. That's what he does. He's a man who's brilliant in the air, and he's right. He's fantastic in the air. And this is why in my preview and after the game I talked about this as well. We've got to get more crosses into the box. We have to get more crosses, even if they're not the greatest crosses in the world, and you're just putting it into an area. Let him do that. Give him more service. And then he talked about as well, sort of like he was actually frustrated because there was a few times actually in the game, and we talked about this again on the post-match yesterday, where Goodmanson got down the left-hand side and we didn't cut the ball back correctly to get Calvert-Lewin the shot. And Calvert-Lewin said, yeah, I went near post and Goodmanson went far post, which obviously we saw in the first 8 minutes of the game. And I liked that, because that's something I can see an improvement from. Because, all right, okay, it didn't work yesterday, and the Goodmanson and the synergy between Goodmanson and Calvert-Lewin as to when we're going to go near post and when we go far post wasn't quite clicking yesterday. And if it was, maybe we score more. But that's something with time. Like, we've got to remember, there's a big context applied here. These are new players. They've only played together. Calvert-Lewin has only played in the same team with Goodmanson, 3 times now? And one of them was off the bench for about 5 minutes. So he's not going to be fully up to speed with and fully knowing where Goodmanson's going to play every time. But the more they play together and the more they have the cohesiveness and the more they have the synergy from playing more games together, that will get better. And that link and to know when Goodmanson's going to put it to the far post and when Goodmanson's going to put it to the near post, I can see improving. And I liked the fact that Calvert-Lewin noticed that in his post-match and talked about the fact that actually there was more goals there to be scored yesterday, because there was. And if we get the synergy between the two, we could have a real sort of a thing on our hands there, a real sort of good goal scoring opportunity on our hands. How good was Goodmanson, by the way? Been impressed with him so far. Yeah, I said yesterday on the stream, we might have done it in one of the videos recent anyway. I said I think he has been, in terms of position, I think he's our best player. Like, he's the best at his position than anyone else on the pitch. Like, Stack's a good midfielder and was brilliant yesterday. Calvert-Lewin's a good striker. But per position, who is the best at their position? I think Goodmanson is the best at his position in the whole team. I think he's the best, yeah, not just obviously he's the best left back in the team, but he's the best, as I said, at his position on the pitch. I think Goodmanson, it's bizarre, but I think he's our best player. And for me, he's definitely our best signing this summer as well. He was brilliant yesterday. But I think the own goal aside against Fulham, he's probably been like, he's been pretty much our best player in every game, because the thing that he offers is he's a brilliant dribbler. He's a brilliant one-on-one defender. He's a brilliant defender in Poe, but as I said, he offers something going forward. And I like the thing he does a lot, people, where he gets the ball and he drives into the midfield with it, and it creates something. It's a lot we see from Bogle. I never really saw it as much from Firpo. And by the way, he's a massive upgrade on Firpo. I know people want to keep Firpo, but he's miles better than Firpo, if we're being totally honest. Not to throw shade on Firpo. This is more to big up Goodmanson. But yeah, you're right. He was brilliant. We had two very unleady goals yesterday. We did. But that's what I mean. That's what Calvert-Lewin can bring us. It's a moment of nothing. That genuinely, the goal is a moment of nothing. It's a right header. You're right. It is a right header. Three bits of quality on each goal. Only a few strikers scored DCL goals. Stacks a belter. Great finish on Okafor's weak side. Going to need these lads to be consistent, and we've got more than enough. Yeah, we have. As I said, and I like the goal. The game yesterday was perfect for us. Like, if we'd have won 1-0 yesterday, that would have been a fantastic result as always. Every win would have been an unbelievable result. But the fact that we scored 3 goals and we came from behind is two things that are massive for Leeds United this year. Because I thought in any game, really, if we went 1-0 down, we're going to be in massive trouble. So the way we reacted and how we sort of came through that was fantastic. But not just that. As I said, the way we actually managed to score 3 goals and actually look like a threat going forward, because we had other openings as well. It wasn't just the goals. Like we had, like Daniel Farke mentioned it, as you said, Luke, in his sort of comments after the game, and Calvert-Lewin did. Calvert-Lewin said he should have had a couple more. Like it was really, really good yesterday. He just seems to be so calm on the ball. Yeah, no, he does, and he takes it in really hard situations as well. Does Goodmanson? He's one of the best players on the ball in the team, and that's, I think, when people talk about sort of changing formation, going to the 5-back, the reason is because Bogle on the right hand side is so good going forward, and actually Goodmanson on the left hand side is so good going forward, and they're actually two of our most creative players. Because I remember last time in the Premier League, like, one of our biggest issues was our fullbacks were awful for that moment in time. Ayling had done a really good job for us, but he was coming out of time. Obviously, the signing of Christensen was an absolute nightmare. Firpo wasn't good enough for the Premier League, in my opinion, as well. But now I think our fullbacks are two of our best things about the team. Like they're two of our best players on the team, our fullbacks, which is really good because they're not only good at defending, but as I said, they offer something going forward as well. But we've got to find a way to have that balance to allow them to go forward and to allow their sort of attacking quality to come into it. Jaggy Babs says, Leeds. Exactly, mate. If you put Leeds, presumably put Leeds as Leeds for each goal, yesterday. He just to be so calm with the ball. Also, I want to shout as well, I put a post on the Leeds United Lens Twitter page today as well. Follow it if you haven't already. And I want to talk about Joe Rodon, by the way, because like, Joe Rodon, like this guy, he's always good. Like he's the most underrated player in the team for me because no one ever talks about Joe Rodon. He's transitioned to the league like it's nothing. Like he still looks like he's playing Championship football. It's that easy for him. He wins every header defensively. He never makes mistakes. He's always fit. He never gets injured ever. And even his passing on the ball's gone up a level this year as well, in my opinion. He's brilliant, is Joe Rodon. He's absolutely brilliant. Never fit, never makes mistakes. He's never had a bad game for Leeds. He's the most underrated player and the most consistent player I can remember at Leeds United for a long time. Genuinely, he's so good, Joe Rodon. He really is. Like he's brilliant. Heads every ball out, and it also there's a lot of times when he's definitely played injured, by the way, but we don't hear it. Like he's played every single game, I think, last season. Played every single minute of every Championship game. He's played every minute again this season. You don't get that. You will have picked up knocks at some point in the season where, by the way, other players wouldn't have played. So Joe Rodon, as I said, not only does he actually every time he plays he's so consistent, but he's never injured, ever injured. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I think the game showed how much buying big players helped. We won everything there. We did. That's a really good point. We did win everything in there. And I think yesterday we saw a bit of what the 49ers were trying to do in the summer in terms of brining the physical attributes. I still think we didn't have a corner yesterday at all in the game, but I still think we need better set-piece takers, in my opinion. I know it sounds ridiculous because Stack scored a worldie. And this is bad timing to say it. I still do think, in terms of maybe Stack's the perfect man when we've got a free kick like that yesterday, where it's a shooting free kick. But I still think when we've got a free kick where it's a crossing free kick, I don't want Stack taking it because he's 6'4" and brilliant in the air. Get him in the box. We needed to have another one, in my opinion. I still think that's something we've got to look at for sure. We were practically playing a 5-back yesterday, which I'll give Farke credit for. Ampadu was playing as a centre-back in the middle of Strachan Road, and yeah, he was. Especially in that second half, I think we sort of dropped into the sort of almost a 5-back situation, didn't we, Luke? Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's something we can definitely do with Ampadu. We know he's played centre-back before as well at Leeds United so far this season, so it's a really good point, and you are right. And because the thing is with Ampadu, I said this on the reaction. I need to stop saying that phrase, but I did. He's so composed in the penalty area, by the way. He's not. It's like some players get it in the box and they're really rash and they just like to clear it and get rid of it quickly. He's very composed, Ampadu, in the box. He doesn't fly into tackles. He's calm and he clears it sensibly a lot of the time. So yeah, I quite like him having that sort of the calmness in the penalty area. I think that's a real positive for us, for sure. Anyway, let's get on to a few more of these DCL quotes as well. Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention with DCL, not as much the quotes, but I wrote in my notes, is one thing we need to do better, in my opinion, especially on the attack with DCL, is because DCL is so good in the air, he wins every single header when the ball goes up. So when Darlow punts it long and DCL nods it on, the amount of flick-ons that he did yesterday that could have sent us in, and nobody runs onto the ball. Nobody runs onto it at all. And we need to have an understanding that when the ball goes long and DCL flicks it on, that we've got an Okafor or an Aronson gambling and making the run. The best example I can give you, and I don't really like to bring him up, but he's the Man United goal yesterday, the first goal, if anyone saw it. The ball goes long from Bienda to Sesko. He flicks it on and then Buemo's straight in. He runs straight onto it. And then he gets in and obviously gets pulled down when the red card happens and it's game over at that point. We need someone to do what Buemo did yesterday. When that ball goes long, we need someone to be ready for the flick on from Calvert-Lewin because he's so good at flicking it on. But we don't. The amount of times he flicked it on and Okafor's just still stood on the left wing, Aronson's still stood on the right wing, and they're not making them sort of inverted runs to pick up a flick on from Calvert-Lewin. We've got to learn that. We've got to have more synergy. But again, this comes from the synergy like we talked about with Goodmanson and where Calvert-Lewin needs to be to make sure that they have the synergy to, are they going to go front post, are they going to back post? It's the exact same with this. When the ball goes long to Calvert-Lewin, we need someone ready for the flick on because it's different to Nemecha. Nemecha seems to get it back, push it back into play, and a lot of the midfielders usually pick the ball up, whereas Calvert-Lewin actually gets high enough to flick the ball on. And he was even beating their big centre-back, Agbadu, as well yesterday. He's unbelievable in there. He's the best header of the ball striker we've had in absolute years. But yeah, when he flicks it on, we have to have an inverted run from Okafor or Aronson because they're really good chances, by the way. Really good chances because they're good flick-ons from Calvert-Lewin. That's something we definitely need to work on. I think if it was goalless game, Arch Gray, do you mean Harry Gray? Harry Gray may have got minutes. Wouldn't it be surprised me to see Farke use him if the goals dry up? I don't think he will. I don't think he will. He was frustrated that he was getting asked about Harry Gray in his most recent press conference. I don't know if you saw. He was really getting angry about the questions about Harry Gray. I don't think we'll see Harry Gray this season, personally. Maybe in the Cup. I think his plan is not to use Harry Gray this year. If that's right or wrong, I'm not sure. I haven't watched enough of Harry Gray. I don't really like under-21s football, if I'm being totally honest. So I haven't watched enough of Harry Gray on that sense to say how good he is. I know he's performing really well. I know he scored a hat-trick the other day, and as I said, he's having a really, really good time of it. I don't think he's going to use him, though. I don't think he's going to use him, if I'm being honest. Maybe as a last resort off the bench. But I do think, I think he brings on Nemecha. I think he brings on Perot as well, but ahead of him. I really do. I'd like to see him play, but I'm not convinced that will happen personally. Anyway, let's get on to a few more match comments that I came up after the game yesterday as well. That I didn't mention in my sort of instant match reaction, which is that I did want to talk a bit about this because I probably didn't touch about it enough yesterday. I don't think we did that. I think in the second half, they put a lot of pressure on us in the second half, in my opinion. And I think people, all right, we defended well. They didn't have loads of good chances. They did have a lot of moments though in the second half where the ball got fizzed in, and we've got to find a way of stopping that happening. And I think the way we need to do that is we need to play a bit. We don't need to be as deep. We were so deep yesterday, especially in the second half, that we was really able to then whip crosses in. Whereas if you're a bit further out, the crosses are not as effective because naturally when the ball comes in to the box, they're going to be heading it on the edge of the penalty area if you've got a much higher line, because it's not going to be as deep. So we need to push that line up to make sure we can't, like we had Agbadu swinging them in from nearly the halfway line into our own penalty area in about the 70th minute. That can't happen, because then you end up with tons of touches in the Premier League in the box. And if you let players have touches in the Premier League at this level, they'll score goals. And to put it into perspective about how many touches they had in the Premier League in our box yesterday. Wolves yesterday had 29 touches in our penalty area. 29. To put that into perspective, Arsenal had 34 and scored 5 goals. You can't let people have. I think that's a sign of letting people into our box, and it can't happen, in my opinion. We honestly can't let. We can't let that happen as much, and we've got to find a way, as I said, of pushing that line up further to make sure that they can't just get crosses in constantly, because we will get punished for having such a deep line, in my opinion. I do think that was a slight mistake yesterday, which is something I wanted to pick up on, because, as I said, they managed 10 crosses in the second half alone, which is nearly one every 4 minutes, which is ridiculous. And that's not including corners, by the way. That's just in open play. And they managed, as I said, 29 touches in our box. That is a lot of touches. As I said, Arsenal got 34 and managed to score 5 goals against us. So that puts in perspective. And Newcastle only got 13 touches down our box, which was a much better performance. Like, the way we defended against Newcastle was much better. And even the way that we defended against Fulham as well was miles better, in my opinion, than yesterday. I thought we were really deep yesterday. We were too deep, and we've got to push that line up. It wasn't when we were structured in the way we did it, but we've just got to push that line further up, because it makes it so hard for the defenders like Rodon, Strauch and Ampadu have to be so concentrated for the amount of crosses that were put into the box, because enough crosses goes in, eventually they'll score a goal by just law of averages. He'll use him if we're sitting in a very comfortable position in the game, and if he's on the bench. I think you talk about Harry Gray. Agreed, Luke. I think we saw him become 4th choice striker yesterday rather than just under 21s player. Yeah, I think that is true about Harry Gray, because Harry Gray has improved himself. He's doing that well in the 21s. He has become a 4th choice. He has become a 4th choice option for Leeds United for sure. He isn't now just an under 21s player. That's true. I agree with that, Mark. I do agree with that. And the other thing I want to mention yesterday, and I think this breeds into what I was saying about defensive control and about the line being too deep, is I think one of the reasons for that, and I don't want to blame the team as much for this, is that we were missing something going forward, I thought. Like, I think if you can, like when we brought Okafor off, I think the reason we were so deep is because Wolves pushed their line up so high, because after that they weren't worried about the ball in behind, because we didn't have enough pace in behind to cause many issues. So they were much higher, and they were sort of penning us in. And I think we missed like a Dan James yesterday. I think if we'd have had Dan, say when we took off Okafor, if we could have brought a Dan James onto the pitch for the pacing behind, I think you would have seen their defence sort of retreat a bit, because they are scared then of the ball in behind. And I think the lack of a player like that coming on was a problem for Leeds United. Like, Harrison doesn't offer that. And like when you've got a front three like we ended the game with, of Nmecha, Aronson, Harrison, all right, they're good defensively. But one of the best way of defending is to pose a threat on the attack, because it pushes them back. And I don't think any of them pose a threat, especially with the pace in behind, at all. So then their line just got higher and higher and higher, and they squeezed us in more and more and more. And then we're resorting to just kicking it long out of play rather than actually building up attacks and keeping the ball. So that's something we're gonna have to work on as well, and that's something that can be fixed. Like, you bring on a Dan James, and he plays on one of the wings, and you're always going to have that pacing behind threat. And even Nonso, he's not as quick as Dan James by any means, but he still offers that pacing behind threat. And I do think we missed that a bit yesterday, to be fair. I do think we missed Dan James coming on. But obviously there was talks about them two being major doubts for the game today, and they'd obviously missed trainings. That usually means that they're all right for the next game. So as long as they don't re-injure themselves, I do expect Nonso, obviously, and Dan James to be both back for the game against Bournemouth at home. So that'll be nice, because that will then mean that when we make our changes, even if Dan James is on the bench, I do think he'll have a part to play in terms of coming on the pitch for sure. Because, as I said, that's a massive positive. And like, as I said, the difference we saw yesterday was we didn't have that pacing behind. So naturally, they could just keep pushing that line further and further up, because they weren't worried about the ball over the top. You've got to, as much as you ever want to, if you ever want to defend in a game, you've always got to have a threat on the counter attack. You have to do. You can't just defend wave after wave after wave after wave of attack. It can't happen. You've got to at all times offer something going forward. And I think And I do think we lacked that probably later on in the game. Although, as I said, we still defended resolutely and saw it out, and that was fine. But that's something that I think we can definitely work on. And the final thing I do want to mention is about Jack Harrison, actually, because obviously I've sort of given him a bit of grief there. Not as much. It was just it's a different profile. He doesn't have that pacing behind. I do think, though, when he came on yesterday, he did provide us a bit of a sort of tidy option. I don't think he was awful yesterday when he came on by any means. And I thought he kept it ticking over and settled us down a bit. And that's one thing I do want to say about Harrison as a player. Like, I know people think he's absolutely garbage in this fan base, which is absolutely fine. I think probably a part of that stems from the fact that he sacked us off last year and the year before and decided to play for Everton and sort of threw us away when we went to the Championship. And that's something we can talk about for sure. But in terms of an actual player and what he can offer Leeds United, I do think, to be fair, that there is something he can offer this Leeds United team for sure. I actually thought he should have started the game. I now disagree with my own self on that. I don't think he should have done. But I do think he does offer something in terms of he's really good at keeping the ball, Jack Harrison. Really good at he's quite good at winning fouls, but he's very tidy on the ball. He never really gives the ball away. And especially when you're sort of trying to control a game, not control a game as such, but when you're trying to see out a lead, not giving up cheap possession is massively important. And I think Jack Harrison's really good at that, to be fair. So I did want to just say that because I know he gets a lot of grief in the Leeds United fan base, and that's right, and that's true, and that's fair as well. But Jack Harrison does have something to offer this Leeds United team for sure, because as I said, on the ball particularly, he is very, very tidy and he doesn't give it away, which, as I said, when we're seeing out Leeds, it's something that he can offer us. Like, and when we talk about other players in the Leeds United team, like, for example, Ramazani, who's gone out on loan to Valencia, of course. Last season, we didn't have that with Ramazani, which is why I think he's gone out on loan and Harrison stayed, is because Harrison is better at sort of when it gets later in the game, keeping hold of the ball and not doing daft stuff. Like, I remember Ramazani last year. This is not a slag on Ramazani, by the way. It's just a different sort of player. But I remember him running across the field and losing the ball in the midfield against Swansea, I think it was, when we were trying to hold out for a 2-1. And you're just like, what are you doing? Whereas Harrison wouldn't do that. He's much more disciplined. And I do think that is something he offers. Obviously, the downside is that he doesn't have the maverick in him that Ramazani does, and the sort of finish capability that Ramazani does, or anything like that. He's not as good going forward as Ramazani, but he's better on the ball. However, I really don't know how people could watch the game yesterday and tell me that Aronson had a good game. Just constantly loses the ball. Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree with that. I think naturally people are going to be results biased. Like, if we win a game, everyone plays well, and I fall into this trap. I'm a fan of a football club. Everyone is, and when your team wins, everyone gets a better score, and when they lose, they'll get a worse score. But you are right. Like, I think Aronson's best stuff yesterday was obviously off the ball, and I think Aronson's best stuff throughout the year will be off the ball for Leeds United for sure, Luke. But I know what you mean. Like, he constantly loses the ball option, and I think as well, he doesn't really offer anything going forward, does he, at all? Like, there was a point in the second half where he had it one-on-one with our fullback, I think it was, and he tries to beat him down the line. Like, he scans inside to see if there's a pass. There isn't a pass, and he has to try beat him down the line. He tries to beat him down the line, and he just can't do it. And he just gets muscles off the ball, and they're back attacking again. Because I think if that's a Dan James, I think he knocks it down the line, runs onto it, and then they probably knock it out for a throw-in because he's trying to sprint onto it, and he offers that pace in behind. Whereas Aronson doesn't offer that at all. So I know what you mean. Aronson's the most frustrating player in our team, I think, by a country mile, if I'm being totally honest. He frustrates the life out of me. But he does work hard for the team, and I think that's why he gets picked. But I do know what you mean, Luke. I think that's a fair point. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always. I'm back tomorrow at 8 p.m, and I am going to try and make, actually, if you are watching live now, I'm going to try and make 8 p.m. the slot that I do live. So every single day from now on, except obviously on a Saturday when it's the match reaction, it's always going to be 8 p.m. on a day. I can't promise I'll be able to do a live every day. I'll try to do on most days, but obviously naturally life gets in the way. But every single day, 8 p.m. So tomorrow will be 8 p.m. Tuesday will be 8 p.m. That won't be live, unfortunately. Wednesday it will be 8 p.m. Thursday will be 8 p.m. Always 8 p.m. to look out for, because I want to make a consistent schedule so you guys know when I'm live. Because I know a lot of you guys that watch my content prefer when you're live and you can interact in the chat live. So remember, it's always going to be 8 p.m. from now on. It's going to be 8 p.m. every single day except Saturday, or whichever day the game is, which obviously just be a match reaction. But yeah, that's going to be the new schedule of the Leeds Lens YouTube channel. I don't want to make a whole video where people do channel update. Forget that. That's what I'm going to try to do, and that's going to be my time, 8 p.m. Every single day. So yeah, remember tomorrow we've obviously got a live again at 8 p.m. So be around for that. Anyway, thanks all for watching as always, and I'll see you all later, everybody. Bye for now. Bye for now.